And we're live. Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to the Mojo Show, your real estate podcast where we talk about everything real estate. I'm your host, Joe Mortgage.
And I'm Cup of Joe Mortgage.
This week's episode, we're continuing on in our new series revolving around the recent NAR settlement and how it affects you. Today, in particular, we're going to focus on what can buyers expect from all of this. But before we get to all of that, Joe, a little coffee talk this morning. I got to be able to focus on the Olympics.
Yep.
Right? I mean, the Olympics have been going on. I love watching them. I don't know. Do you prefer the Summer Olympics or the Winter Olympics?
I like the winter. There's a lot of things in the Summer Olympics I like the gymnastics, and I like the swimming. But Winter Olympics, I love all the skiing, the downhill, the snowboarding. I get more into the Winter Olympics than I do the Summer Olympics. And actually, a great point. Did they take softball and baseball out of the Olympics? Because I'm not seeing that anymore. And then I'm questioning myself, was softball ever an Olympic sport? But I swear it was.
Well, I mean, wasn't baseball?
I thought so. So that's why I'm asking you, because I was asking my brother too. And my brother's like, yeah, I think it was. Or was that just a national type team? And, my daughter's like, well, I thought it was an Olympic sport. I was like, I don't know. So that was throwing me off on the summer Olympics. But
I don't know if you got to watch it. I haven't been able to watch a lot of it. I mean, kind of at the end of my day, I'll turn the Peacock channel on and watch some of the replays. And that I watched the replays of badminton. That is crazy. You've seen these guys. It is crazy what they do in matches.
I've played badminton. I don't see how people can move that quick and know where that bird's coming that fast. That thing's ridiculous. That's just like, when you watch these, pickleball is going to be an Olympic sport, probably the next time we have a summer Olympics, right?
Right.
Watching those people play pickleball, I'm like, what? I thought this was for an old person like myself that can get out there and play and have fun. But the way that these people are going at it, I'm like, nope, I'm good. I'll stay on the sideline.
If you've got a favorite sport that you're liking, that you really like to watch at the Olympics, drop it in the comments. I see we got somebody in there already. Mr. Perkins there. Curling is my favorite. I got to admit, how long ago did they add curling? Was that back in like the 90s, early 2000s?
Oh, yeah. I think it was before that. And, my wife being from Minnesota, they actually have a curling, we have Topgolf and all that stuff, and so do they. But they have a restaurant bar that has curling in it too.
Really?
But you can rent a lane and you can do curling. And, so it's right outside of Chanhassen, I believe, Minnesota,
okay,
that I went to. I've never did it because I don't want to slip and fall on the ice. So.
Well, not to take too much time on this subject, because we could talk about it the whole show, but if there was one event that you would want to be in, I mean, if you had the physical body, the money, the means to be in, what would it be, Joe?
It would be, if I had the money and the body for it, it would be shot put or discus. That was two things that I enjoyed watching those guys, but I'm nowhere close to that shoulder strength, nor do I have the arm length that those guys do.
Well,
what about you? What is yours?
It'd be kind of a toss up, because the swimming, I mean, you look at those guys, their bodies are just, there's not an ounce of fat on them, right? I mean, they're so lean in that. Right. I think it's super cool. The event itself as well. Of course, the golf. I mean, I would definitely want to play in the Olympics for golf. But I do have to say one last thing here. I don't know about you, but one of the things I love to watch, I think is so cool, is synchronized diving. Have you ever watched that? Synchronized diving. That is so cool to watch.
That one scares me though, because you're jumping on that board and you have to time it up exactly. That's got to be a lot of practice.
A lot. Well, listen, let's jump into the show today, because there's a lot to cover, a lot of very important stuff to cover as well in this. I'm really like the series we got going revolving around the NAR settlements. And looking forward to having our guest on because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, this is the first time that we've had a returning guest to the show, isn't it?
No, we had Kenny.
Oh, HVAC guy.
Yep.
Yes, that's right. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. So this is the second returning.
This is the first returning real estate agent that we have had on
very
our show.
good. Excellent. So of course, we're super excited to have him back on the show as a returning guest. Super excited. His insights in particular on the NAR settlement, how approaches it with his buyers' clients. He's a top realtor in the DFW. For those of you that don't know, that's Dallas-Fort Worth area for Compass Realty. And when I talk about a top tier realtor, he is always in that group. When I talk about top tier realtors, he truly is. Here's one reason why he won the 2022 Silver placement for the best in DFW People's Choice Award from the Dallas Morning News. Please welcome to the show, everyone, Mr. Corey Chambers.
Hey, Corey, welcome to the show. Before we kind of get in, I know you've told people about yourself before, but we get new listeners, and go ahead and tell the listeners and people watching a little bit about you before we get into kind of today's topics.
Okay. Awesome. Well, my name is Corey Chambers. I'm out here in the North Dallas area. I specialize in Dallas, Collin, and Grayson counties, and been in real estate full-time for 6 years now, a little over 6 years. And when I'm not helping my clients, I'm hanging out and playing with my 2 little kids. I've got a almost 9-year-old daughter and 5-year-old son and 2 dogs running around the house. So the house can get a little crazy at times.
I bet. What kind of dogs do you have, Corey?
I've got a golden doodle that's about waist high.
Okay.
She's a monster. And then we've got the weirdest little lab. He's half lab, half dachshund.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And he just looks like a miniature lab.
That's well, next time we're going to need to see pictures of them. So,
absolutely.
Make sure you have those for us next time. Anybody listening, as we're going through this, please type a comment, ask questions. You have access to Corey and what we're talking about today on the NAR settlement. But please be interactive. Ask those questions. We'll get them answered. We'll show them on there. We do appreciate everybody listening in. So kind of going into today, Corey, this is the second episode we've had about the NAR and the settlement, the things that are going on there. Is this affecting your meetings with your buyer's agents? And if it is, or if it isn't, why?
Honestly, it's not really affecting me and my business as far as with buyers almost whatsoever. So one thing that I did when I first got started in the business was I really heavily invested into education and training. And one of the things that I was taught through those trainings and educations is to conduct a buyer discovery meeting, is what I like to call them. And this I consider to be mandatory for anybody who wants to work with me, because in that process, we're discovering who each other are. I'm discovering what the buyer's looking for, and they're discovering what the process is that they're going to be going through from that point until when they get the keys to their home. And it really NAR says a lot about transparency with that. This unveils the curtain about what it is that they're going to go through and makes it as transparent as possible.
I like how you call it a discovery meeting. I think I'm going to have to switch up my initial phone calls to a discovery call. I like the spin on that. During the discovery meetings, what are some of the key factors that you're trying to get before you go into like a presentation? What are things that you're trying to do on that discovery meeting? I know I'm kind of going a different avenue, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. Joe, I'm getting shorter and shorter on going off script.
9 minutes today. Thank you.
It took you all of 5 minutes. So
gotta love it.
What I'm looking for in the discovery meeting from my clients is really just the whys behind everything. Why are they looking to buy a home? Why are they needing certain facets of it? And that's what we really kind of dive into. Okay, so you're looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home with an office. Okay, what are you going to be using the office for? Would a bedroom be able to work for that? Would a 4-bedroom, 2-bath work? What are you going to use the other bedrooms for? Do you need a media room? Why do you need this? And really diving into the heart of their search so that they have the transparency as well, or the freedom for when we're out looking, say, this is exactly what I'm looking for.
Okay. Oh, I like that. I mean, I think getting to know the whys behind everything makes everything easier when you're either showing them something, and in Joe and I's world, when you're talking about payments, when you're talking about, out of pocket money, if you know the why behind what they're doing, it's an easier conversation versus just telling somebody, oh, your rate's going to be at 7.5%, right? Knowing the why, knowing where they need to be. I like that. That's a great way of doing it. So with the NAR stuff, you said it hasn't changed anything that you do. So was there something that was put in place that you've been doing? How long have you been in real estate again? I can't remember off the top. You say 6 years?
I've been doing this full time for 6 years now.
Okay. So for 6 years, you said it hasn't changed anything. So you've always kind of gone through some of the things, and I know you're going to talk more about it here in a little bit. But on that initial meeting, that discovery, what are you really trying to capture from that and share now that the settlement is kind of in place?
Well, now that the settlement's in place, it's really important that we have to have a buyer's rep signed on that initial meeting before we can even go and tour a home. And there's two different forms of that provided by the Texas Association of Realtors. There's either a short agreement or a long agreement. Really, the short agreement is, I don't really know if I like you and want to work with you. We'll test the waters. It's more of like a dating agreement is what I'm hearing it. While the other one, it's a long form. It's more specific. It's like, yes, you are my realtor. I am going to work with you.
Okay.
And these meetings really help discovery meeting with that. Am I your client? Is this somebody who I want to work with?
So how do you go about, the setting that meeting initially? I mean, what do you begin to cover in that you feel is pertinent in regards to the NAR settlement itself?
Well, in light of actually setting the appointment with the client, it's just the initial phone call. When we sit down, somebody calls up and says, hey, I'm looking for a house. I said, okay, well, this is my process. When is a good time that we have about an hour to carve out? That way we can find out exactly what it is that you're looking for. I can tell you about what my system is, and this is the first step in that process.
And I understand you actually have a book that you go through with them as a guide to present to them. Is that correct?
I do, yes. I have a hard copy book that I actually present to them. And I'm not going to be able to show everybody the actual book itself, the hard copy, but I do have a flip book version that way I can show all of your viewers.
Yeah,
I'll pull it
up and take a look. I think it'd help a lot of, especially realtors. If you're listening in right now, I mean, these are if you're having difficulty or wanting some guidance on this is the stuff that needs to be done with each buyer client that you're going through, right? If you're not doing this already, hopefully you are, right? But definitely drop comments in the bottom or questions as well as we go through this with Corey and his buyer's guide that he uses.
And this is actually probably my 7th or 8th rendition of a buyer's book. Okay. It continues to evolve and mold and grow. And already this book I've been using this one for 3 months, and there's already things I want to change about it.
Okay.
So it's an ever-changing thing, right? Every time you do a presentation or you show somebody, you're like, oh, I don't like that anymore.
It is. Or I jump on, or I'm on a podcast, or I'm listening to a podcast, and I'm like, oh, that's great. I need to change that in my book.
Right.
So if you are a realtor and you don't have a book, I highly recommend that you either draft one, get with your brokerage, or even just send me an email. Look me up, and I'm happy to share mine with you. If you're a client and you don't have a realtor that has a book or a presentation or a guide to show you what it's looking for, that's, in my mind, a pretty big red flag.
Yeah, that's a red flag.
So here's the cover page, and then I've got a whole table of contents. We're not going to go into all this just for time's sake. But what I find important, what's in my book, is I've got a roadmap to homeownership, an explanation of what buyer agency is, especially in the light of all this NAR agreement, how we craft the search, what my responsibilities are. And then I go into the 5 different points of negotiation on every contract, tips for making the best offer, the power of a pre-approval, which really helps strengthen with you guys too. I recommend that they go through and get the full pre-approval process. Things to avoid after they apply for the mortgage. An example of upfront costs, what their closing costs will be, a little bit about me, a glossary of terms. I have a recommended lender section. And then we go into the actual contract, and I have the full 1 to 4 state contract in here, along with the most common addendum, the HOA, the appraisal addendum, the seller's temporary lease, and the sale of other property addendum. Wow. So they know what they're signing instantly.
Yeah, and I like how you have a table of contents on what your 48 pages kind of entails. You know, a booklet sometimes. I'm not a reader. I mean, let's be honest. I read mortgage things and guidelines. Those are the 2 things I read. But having a table of contents is nice, because then, you know, I know what you're going to be presenting to me. So I like that. I like how you have that laid out.
Yeah, and it looks from here like this is really, really wordy. As we kind of get into here, I'll show you a couple of these slides. This is probably the most wordy slide on here. Actually, it by far is. It's the roadmap to homeownership. And this is what we really go through during the presentation, during that discovery meeting. We're establishing what they're wanting, what their needs and their priorities are, the importance of getting pre-approved, going through the funnel process for buyers, which is what is their search. And I work through a process of elimination, not a process of selection. I cover that. Then we're going out and visiting properties, submitting offers, going through the escrow process, home inspections, disclosures, repairs, underwriting, and then closing.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. And, you know, you said that you cover, you know, upfront costs. I know a home inspection is one of those upfront costs that not every buyer knows that you have to pay for that out of your own pocket. And, you know, in the mortgage, we don't want to see those home inspections because if we see them and there's repairs that need to be done, technically we're supposed to tell the underwriters. So just make sure that those home inspections are not sent to your lender if you're buying a house.
Correct. And if there is a lot of repairs that we're requesting, don't necessarily send a repair amendment to the lender.
No, just give us the seller concession page, please.
You don't want to know that there's $10,000 in foundation work on the house.
No.
Well, if that comes up on the appraisal, I mean, if it's 10,000, you're going to see it on the appraisal saying, "Oh, you need an engineer report." So I get that
one. So in the light of NAR, I actually added this page. What is the buyer agency? And it's just, okay, we have exclusive buyer agency, which is where we're working together. I have you as my fiduciary client, and there's dual agency. If you're going directly to a seller, that seller does not have your best interests. They don't have a contract with you. Or if you're going to a for sale by owner or anything else like that, that leaves you exposed. That's a red flag.
Yeah.
And this is just how I put together the search. I go over that with them.
Okay.
And then here's what I do. This is a brief description of all of my responsibilities. I'm creating the search for them. I'm giving them lenders that are reputable that they can go to, like Joe. Worked several times with Joe and really enjoy working with him. And so it's like, I want you to work with somebody who not only do I know, like, and trust, but also can get you to the closing table and knows their stuff. We have to have that. That's critical.
Well, that's what a relationship.
Joe?
No, we're talking about Joe Mortgage. Joe Mortgage Reams.
Yes.
You know, so I like that, because that's one thing that we preach is working as a relationship with your real estate agents. And you kind of saying that, I know there's other lenders out there, and you know, y'all are supposed to give 3, but being able to talk about a relationship is always nice, and pointing them to the trusted mortgage lenders, because some people get online and they're like, oh, we got this rate. And then all of a sudden they're last minute. Like I got a phone call yesterday from an agent saying, well, I need your help. Can you close by Wednesday next? I'm like, no, because I'm outside of the regulations to close in 8 days. So you do need a reputable person that the real estate agent knows. So I like how you put that in there.
Yeah. And then going on, it's basically the whole things that we do as realtors. We're searching the MLS for them and searching off-market properties for them. We're scheduling everything. We're drafting the offers. We're negotiating on their behalf. We're opening up the title. We're making sure all the contract timelines are met. Scheduling the walkthroughs, the inspections, attending all those, negotiating on their behalf, and then making sure they get their keys. And
if I can interject, I got a question and as well. Any realtors, I'm curious to know, those of you realtors that are listening in, are you doing this? Is this something that you are already doing? Drop it in the comments. Yes, no, thumbs up, whatever. Let me know. But Corey, I love this flip book that you got going. I've used flip books in the past. I think they're fantastic. Do you ever use this online, or is it, I would imagine the majority of the time you're in front, belly to belly with the client. You're using more the hard copy though.
I use the hard copy almost exclusively, with the exception of if the client is out of state and relocating in, and then we'll do this digitally, kind of like how we're doing right now.
Okay. Cool.
But I feel it's very important to sit there face to face, be able to really interact, because that starts off the relationship on the right foot, I think.
Communication.
With the NAR settlement and everything, this is actually where I go ahead and I bring in on this slide. This is where I go ahead and discuss what my fee is. And we talk about the buyer's rep agreement. And say, this is what everything that I'm doing. My agreement is for 3%. That's my chart. That's my rate. And 9 times out of 10, the seller's going to be covering that, even in this market. If they're not covering it, they're going to be covering the bulk of it, and we'll have the difference. And there's a couple different ways we can do that once we discover what the variance is. The most recent that I've seen was like a 0.5% discount that the seller was only paying 2.5% instead of 3%. We worked on getting a couple different avenues first. First of all, we worked on negotiating that into the contract, and that didn't work. And then we went ahead and we asked for seller concessions. So the way we asked for it right off the bat was, for this particular example, we had that as part of the repair amendment.
Okay. So building in, things that want to get done, so that way the client doesn't have to go out of pocket. So, okay. Correct. I like that.
The other way that we can do that is actually increase the sales price. So if it's, say $360 and they're shorting 0.5%, that's about $1,800. So instead of offering $360, we increase the price of the home to $361,800, and then have that $1,800 come back as on the settlement statement.
Okay.
So it's a way of shifting the shells, and they're wrapping it into their mortgage rather than having to pay me a check directly.
Right. So you're trying to negotiate them just to make your percentage, the 3%, whole before going under contract. You can do that too. I did not know that part. I knew that you could do seller concessions to offset like closing costs and things like that, to where at least that way the buyer's money out of pocket stays about the same. But I didn't know that you could go to them if they're saying we're not offering a buyer's compensation. You can go in with your offer and be like, we request the buyer compensation of 3% with our offer. Okay. That's good information. Joe, did you know that
I did not. Actually, no, I did not. That's pretty cool way of handling it.
Yeah,
so one of the things that we're hearing too is with the MLS no longer can put on there what the compensation is going to agents. And so what has that changed for you now when you're calling or you're trying to set up appointments to go see homes? Has that changed your strategy?
Slightly. We do have to make a lot more phone calls when we're going out and touring multiple properties, but in the end, it's all the same.
Okay.
Because a lot of agents now, they're just saying, just put your agreement in there and with the contract. We'll discuss it as the contract.
Okay. All right. We do have a question, Joe, if you want to share that one. E.G. Perkins is listening, and we appreciate you, E.G., for staying on here and asking questions.
Absolutely. So he's asking, do you see the average 3% commission to both parties starting to fluctuate now at all? Have you seen that at all, Corey?
In our sales meeting yesterday, we discussed that a little bit, and we went historical since 1990 up until current. And Dallas, in particular, has been right about 3%, like 2.9% for buyer's side since 1990 on average. From what we gathered in the last 2 months, it has slipped slightly to about 2.8%.
Okay.
If I remember that correctly.
Okay.
When did buyer agreements come out? Do you know the year? I mean, I know you've been doing it for 6 years. I know they've been around for a while. I just didn't know if you knew when they came out, because I feel like we went away from them when rates dropped, because there were so many more people coming and looking for homes and wanting to buy, that buyer's agents just stopped kind of going into them. But haven't they been around for a while?
I'm not sure on that. I know when I first got licensed, my first year, well, actually really my first 2 years in the business, I never used a buyer's rep agreement.
Right.
It was based on trust. And then when I moved over to Compass requires them with the file, with compliance. So what I did with a lot of my sphere and people that I knew was we would just go ahead and act like based out of trust. And then when we put in an offer, I had to put in a buyer rep agreement in there too. And we just said, yeah, this is what the rep is. That way I could turn it into compliance.
Gotcha.
Now we have to have that signed before we can even enter a home. So that's a big change.
That's got to help you though, having that before entering a home. I mean, it's got to help you in kind of securing the client more, does it not?
It does.
Right. Okay. If I can also ask, I see E.G. Perkins, another question pop up here, and we'll get right to that. But in the past month, Corey, in meeting with buyers, have you seen, or have buyers brought the subject, the NAR settlement, up to you at all? Are they knowledgeable in knowing this? I'm curious if the consumer, right, is bringing it up to you, realtors.
My last 4 buyer agreements that I've done, or buyer presentations that I've done, I've asked them if they know about the NAR settlement, and all of them like, no, what's that?
No. Yeah. See, yeah, I think the media is making more of this than what it is. And I think that as well, I know, Joe, you and I were on a Zoom call a couple of days ago or so, or last week, with Sky Michaels. I want to talk about him towards the end here, but something that he brought up is that one of the last things that us LOs went through was like TRID, right? There was a big deal, but within 6 months or so, I mean, it's business as usual, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, Corey, but I think 6 months or so is probably going to be the same thing from now. It's business as usual, right?
I think so. I mean, it's still business as usual for me.
Yeah.
And I think it's a learning curve for some of the realtors that weren't doing this. And it's anytime that change comes up, change can be scary. But I think in the end, it's better for the buyer to have this agreement in place. But I think it hurts the buyer to have the compensation fields removed. I think that goes in the opposite direction of transparency.
Yeah. Absolutely.
No, I think you hit it on the head there, Joe. With TRID, the fees, you can't change this, you can't change that. Well, I mean, honestly, you shouldn't have been able to change it back in the day, changing the lender fees, because you should know what it is at that time. And now this is just bringing to light, there is a buyer's agent compensation. It's 3%, and if they want to negotiate, they have that willingness to try and talk with their buyer's agent. But I like that now it's a known thing up front. I think, like you said, in 6 months, you're just going to be going through this. But Corey, Compass already had you guys doing it anyway. So it's not a change for you, which is awesome. And that's working with a professional real estate agent get you those things versus working with somebody that's just, trying to hide things from you. So we really appreciate you.
I think the big thing is there were a lot of realtors that said, you can work with me as buyer's agent because my services are free to you.
Yeah.
The services weren't free.
No,
they just weren't paying that. They weren't writing that check themselves.
Right. I think that's a good clarity to be able to point out, right? That they weren't. It was really the sellers, that was paying it, not the buyer.
Well, in reality, it's the buyer that's paying it because the buyer's the one that's bringing the funds to the table.
That's true. I mean, it's in that purchase price. They are paying it. Just like builders say they're giving you these large incentives. Well, if you don't use their lender, you're not getting the large incentive. You're still paying it in the purchase price, one way or the other. But, people that are selling their houses, one thing that I will always say, use an agent, pay a buyer's compensation. You'll get more people to your house. It'll be an easier transaction for you by doing that. And, you're out 3%, but if you're pricing your home right, then that 3% is not going to be a problem.
Right. Exactly.
So,
well, gentlemen, I know we're out of time. Great stuff. It's amazing how fast everything goes. The time flies when we're covering this kind of stuff and in depth and that. And I want to thank you, Corey, for coming on our show again. We really appreciate your insights, especially with the NAR settlement, and that you're able to give to our listeners out there. If any of you have additional questions or comments or that you would like to talk with Corey further about this, or if you're a buyer out there looking for the right realtor that knows how to navigate you through this, Corey, how can people get a hold of you best?
Just pick up the phone and call me or shoot me a text.
Okay.
My number is really easy to find. If you just Google Corey Chambers, it comes up.
Got it. Perfect. All right. Well, next week, we're going to continue on with our series focused on the recent NAR settlement. It will be our last segment, actually, with the NAR settlement. We're going to have Dave Bowman on next week, realtor, in focusing on how this affects home buyers. So be sure to tune in next week at our usual time, Wednesday, 9 a.m. Central. And want to thank everyone for listening in today. And E.G. Perkins, thank you for your questions and comments. Really appreciate those. If you want to catch up on any of our past episodes, go to our YouTube channel, The Mojo Show Real Estate Podcast. And while you're there, please hit the subscribe button because we are on a mission to get to 1,000 subscribers. And I think for this episode, something that I want to interject real quick that I'm going to try to put on our YouTube page for this, August 20th, Sky Michaels is going to be doing a webinar on navigating the NAR settlement. So I'll try to put the link there in our YouTube channel so that you can click on it, register for it. It's August 20th at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So be sure to check that out for additional information on how to navigate the NAR settlement. Besides that, before I close things out, Joe, any last comments, sir?
Just want to say thank you to Corey. Guys, if you are looking to buy a house, sell a house, please get a hold of Corey if you're in the Dallas County, Collin County area, the areas that he specializes in. I know he'll take great care of you.
Especially if you're looking to buy a house that has an Audi car that comes with it, by the way. Yes. I don't know if can we, I know we're over time, but I just got to put that plug in. Corey, real quick, tell our viewers about this house real quick.
So I am selling a house in Fairview. It is 6,848 square feet, custom built, 5 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, media, game room, office, full scullery, everything. Very modern home. And most of the properties in this area that are our competition have taken price drops of about $100,000. So we had the idea of, instead of dropping $100,000, we will buy we'll drop $25,000 and we'll buy an Audi of the buyer's choice of up to $75,000.
Wow.
So it's all,
get a hold of Corey, get a new car.
Exactly.
I like it.
Ironically, since we've put that promotion on, it's been on for about 9 days, 10 days, something like that.
Yeah.
We've had quite a few eyes on it, and
Yeah.
most people that we only had one person that's interested in the car.
Wow.
Really? Everybody else is like, can I take that allowance and use it towards a pool, or use it towards
there you go.
this, or use it towards this? Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah.
This is just to get you thinking, get you talking about that. Obviously,
Right.
there are some stipulations, and we did rate that in private remarks, and we have that on all the marketing materials and everything about what it is.
That's fantastic.
That is interesting. I like that. That's great way of trying to get people interested.
So if you want to see the house is 911 Harbor Oaks in Fairview, Texas.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, if you want a new car with your new home, check out Corey and that address, and I'm sure he'll get you set up. But we're going to close things out. So I'm Joe Mortgage, and that handsome guy with the beard over there is Cup of Joe Mortgage, and we'll see you next week.